Alright, in this video tutorial, we're going to talk about the second important piece of JavaScript code. It is functions. Function is a block of code to perform a particular task. You can use function to remove repetitive code and improve the code readability. Before we do anything, I'm just going to open the debug console here. It's very useful to use it while coding. The syntax for function is very simple. You just say function and then declare the function name, multiply. And then I'm gonna write a very simple function that multiply two numbers together. So two numbers, and it's gonna return n1 multiply n2. So, and then I can just try it with multiplying 3 by 4, and then when I run it I get 12. So that's a very simple function. Very simple function. Now let's talk about more complex function that we typically see in a D3.js document. We typically seeing this very complex, lots of dots function here. So in this tutorial, we're gonna examine what these functions are. One of the techniques in JavaScript functions is called method chaining. What method chaining is, you can write multiple methods right next to each other. Is a way to bundle the code together so you can see relevant code right next to each other. At first it kind of looks scary, but once you understand the syntax and digest it, you will see it is not so complicated. So for this block of code, the first function is select, and it's going to select a canvas SVG div. So this D3 select will return a div. Think of it as an object. And then once we get that object, it's going to append an SVG element to the object. So after we finish executing this block of code, we will have an SVG element returned and appended into the canvas SVG div right here. So that's pretty simple. And then once it returned the SVG, we can start modifying the attribute of the SVG. Okay? And then after that, it's going to append a G element inside that SVG, and then set the transform attribute of that SVG. Alright, it sounds kind of complicated, so let's go and dissect each individual component of this function chaining. So we're going to go to this blank canvas with a very simple document. I'm going to do a var svg equal d3.select canvas svg. Okay, and for the sake of clarification, I'm going to just print out the svg variable every single time we make change to this function. Okay, so it's going to print out like an array of one element, and you can see inside that array you have the div canvas svg, and the inspector is showing me where the canvas svg is. So, alright, okay, we're going to go to the next statement is once we select the div, we want to append an SVG element into that div. Okay, so now this function append will return me not a div anymore, but an SVG element instead. Okay, I'm gonna refresh, and once I inspect this array, I will see an SVG, and now it has a different size and width and height, as you can see above. Okay, so the next step, I'm gonna set the attribute width and height for the SVG. Okay, I'm gonna set it to width plus margin dot left, and then plus margin dot right, and then height going to be height plus margin dot top plus margin dot bottom. Okay, so that's the new SVG. And the width and height, you can see, is changed to 802 by 452. So that's a little bit closer to what we have right here. And if we go to the, if we actually inspect the HTML DOM, we're going to see in the div canvas-svg div, we have an SVG element of width 800 and height 450. So that's what this function does. Okay, and we're gonna continue and then append a G element, means a grouping of visual elements on the visualization. So for this grouping, we're gonna set the transform attribute to be. Notice this SVG is empty right now, it has nothing in there. We're going to transform this one to, so we're going to translate margin.left plus, and then margin.top plus. And we're going to close the parenthesis. So it looks complicated, but what it is gonna create a translate string that's gonna look something like this. So translate, and then it's gonna add margin left is 50, and then margin top is 20. So it's gonna set the transform attribute of this G element to be this string, which is gonna transform the groups a little bit inside the canvas here. The reason is once we have the the vertical axis, we need some space between the left boundary and the axis so that we can see the number, and then the number is not hidden behind the canvas. Okay, so once we have that, then once we refresh, and this append statement will return the G element in here. So this variable is no longer SVG, but it's going to be a group element. You can see it's right here. Okay, and once we inspect the DOM, when we inspect the DOM, we see an SVG here like before, plus a G element here. You can see the browser is highlighting the G where it starts. It's going to be 50 from the left and then 20 from the top. So this chaining of function is going to bundle all the code together and then put it in one place so we can easily see. And as you read through D3 code, you will see a lot of method chaining. So this, for example, this is going to create a D3 timescale and then call the function range to set the width of that timescale, which is going to be from here, from the left side, all the way to the right. So the timescale will fit into this width. And lots of function chaining here, but the basic idea is when you call the function, it will return an object, and then you continually call more functions on that object. So that's it for this tutorial. Comment on YouTube or in our blog article if you have any question. Thanks.